Good evening, I'm Larry Kane with Jane Robelo. This is a special report from Channel 10 News on the death of Frank Rizzo.
It's been a very emotional day. Our Channel 10 News cameras have been throughout the Philadelphia area, and tonight we can hopefully bring you some of the background of the man and also what happened today. The former mayor collapsed in his office, and then he was then taken to Thomas Jefferson Medical Center. Channel 10's Harvey Clark has been at the medical center since early this afternoon, and he joins us there now. Harvey?
Jane, things have finally quieted down. Earlier to this afternoon, there were hundreds of people who had gotten the word that Frank Rizzo had died and gathered up here at Jefferson Hospital, and they stayed here until just a couple of hours ago when Frank Rizzo left Thomas Jefferson. Late this afternoon, Frank Rizzo's body left Jefferson Hospital under police escort.
Frank was so much a part of Philadelphia, and I think there was an awful lot of Philadelphia that was a part of him.
Frank Rizzo touched the lives of thousands, and as the news of his death sank in, those who were closest to him remembered the big Bambino.
He's a man who loved the city, and God bless you, Frank. God bless you.
For over 20 years, Tony Fullwood was Rizzo's bodyguard and closest friend. Rizzo was like a father to him.
The memories I have of Frank Rizzo was the time of the Arco fire in 1975. Columbus Day, October the 12th, 1975. We had an explosion in one of the gasoline tanks. I grabbed Frank Rizzo to run with him, and we ran about 30, 40 feet, and he tripped and fell and hurt himself. Broke his hip. During this time, here's a man in excruciating pain on the ground. He's more concerned how I felt than he felt. He could have died from that injury, but he's more concerned about how I felt. He said, "Tony, don't worry about it. You were trying to save my life."
I think it's only fair to say that not all of Philadelphia loved Frank Rizzo, but here today there was an emotion of all kinds of people who gathered here, street vendors, just normal people, cab drivers, all who came to spend this last day with Frank Rizzo at Thomas Jefferson Hospital. Harvey Clark, Channel 10 News Live at Thomas Jefferson. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Harvey.
You know, sometimes when an event like this happens, it's never more vivid as when you see it on the front page of a newspaper and the news broke quickly. This is what the cover of the Daily News looked like this afternoon. Rizzo dies. Heart attack fells ex-mayor. That tells the story.
It happened this afternoon, and there were valiant attempts to save his life. Right now, Channel 10 Sherry Bank is at Thomas Jefferson Hospital with more on that attempt to save the life of Frank Rizzo this afternoon. Sherry?
Well, Larry and Jane, you know, Frank Rizzo always looked so vital and healthy, didn't he? In fact, his aides say today that when he arrived at his campaign office, he was bright and cheery. That's exactly what they said. He went out for a little campaigning, and then he came back to lunch. He had a turkey sandwich. It was all laid out for him, ready to eat. But first he said he was going to the bathroom to wash his hands. Suddenly, without warning, he just collapsed on the bathroom floor. It wasn't a heart attack, doctors say, where the artery gets occluded. It's called sudden cardiac death. His heart just stopped, and he was rushed here to Jefferson Hospital.
He had no vital signs. He was not breathing, his heart was not working, and the condition, as we describe it medically, is in cardiac arrest.
ER Chief Joe Zaccardi was one of the doctors who worked on Frank Rizzo as the former mayor's wife, Carmela, was rushed to the hospital to be with her husband. But doctors say Mr. Rizzo never opened his eyes.
Dave Roberts and Jim Gardner.
The American flag is flying at half-staff this evening high atop Philadelphia City Hall. And all over the city of Philadelphia, people have lowered their flags to honor the memory of Frank Rizzo. Wednesday night, and the big story of Action News tonight is the city of Philadelphia mourning the death of Frank Rizzo. At the Rizzo home in Chestnut Hill, there was a steady stream of flowers and food from neighbors and well-wishers. Rizzo's widow, Carmela, was a gracious hostess, finding the will to comfort others while she copes with her own grief. And there was a poignant scene in the driveway. Rizzo's grandson, 9-year-old Joey Mastronardo, chasing a motorized car that was a gift from his grandpa Frank. And this was the scene at Rizzo's home. Action News reporter David Henry spent part of his day at Rizzo's place of work.
Yeah.
The tears came easily as Frank Rizzo's campaign staffers returned to their desks this morning. Few could believe the man they still called mayor wouldn't come through the door eager to wade into another day of campaigning.
It seems like a nightmare, and I wish I'd wake up.
At noon, the staff gathered in a conference room to talk about what was and what might have been, to offer each other comfort and encouragement. They had worked hard as a team, overcoming tremendous odds to win the primary. Now they'll have to come to grips with the fact that it's all over. Campaign manager Marty Weinberg had words of thanks before beginning a private discussion of where to go from here.
We appreciate everything that you've done. We can all be very, very proud of what we accomplished.
Campaign staffers say they can still hear the echo of Rizzo's booming voice and hearty laughter in the outer office, but nowhere is the finality of the loss more evident than down at the end of the hallway behind that closed door, the inner sanctum, Frank Rizzo's private office where he spent his final moments. Someone delivered the paper to his desk as usual this morning. A thank you note to anti-drug crusader Herman Rice waited for his signature. The 6 sharpened pencils he always demanded were in their usual place. His personal secretaries came in to look around and reminisce.
I'm going to miss hearing his voice. I'm going to miss the excitement he generated. I'm going to miss a man of such integrity and high moral character and love for all people and for this city.
Well, one time a lady had a raccoon in her driveway, and I called the police, and he called me back, and he said, well, give me your number, I'll take care of it. It was about 11 o'clock on a Friday night. And he showed personal attention to everybody. They were more important to him than anything, than any dignitary, were the little people.
And today, the loyal people of his staff cleared Frank Rizzo's desk for the last time. David Henry, Channel 6 Action News, Center City.
Rizzo's body is currently at the Kirk-and-Nice Funeral Home in Mount Airy. Tomorrow at 4, the Rizzo family will have a private viewing at the Cathedral of Saints Peter and Paul. And then the public viewing will begin at 5. And the family says it will stay there until the last person who wants to pay respects gets the opportunity. Cardinal Bevilacqua will celebrate a massive Christian burial Friday at 10 a.m. and Channel 6 will broadcast the Mass live. Frank Rizzo will then be buried at the Holy Sepulchre Cemetery in Cheltenham. And the Rizzo family wants everybody to know that instead of flowers, people wanting to make contributions should send donations to Catholic Charities at 222 North 17th Street in Philadelphia. There are people all over Philadelphia who feel a deep sense of loss today, but it is also true that an entire Philadelphia neighborhood is trying to cope with Rizzo's death. And of course, that neighborhood is South Philadelphia, and that's where Action News reporter David Murphy was today.
It's the sound, the atmosphere, and the neighborhood that made Frank Rizzo. In South Philadelphia today, they say a piece of the place's heart has been torn out. From Italian market grocer Fred DeRigo.
He was a very good man. You know, he was for the small guy, he was for us guys around here.
To the people eating steaks at Pat's.
This being his neighborhood and all, I think that people have more heartbreak.
Businesses were paying his honor today. Palumbo's hung out a goodbye message. Frank ate his last dinner out in the restaurant's Nostalgia Room Monday night. He was served by his favorite waitress.
Older women were crying yesterday. I loved him, I really did, and we all did.
At this Italian ceramics shop, owner Sonny Vigilante taped up a recent campaign trail photo of he and Rizzo as a tribute.
The name in South Philadelphia is like talking about Caruso or Mario Alonso.
Sonny has an almost identical photo from Rizzo's 1971 campaign. In South Philadelphia, it seems Rizzo was consistent. But Frank Rizzo is connected with people here not only because of his political career, but because he's from here. St. Monica's Roman Catholic Church at 17th and Rittner is where Rizzo worshipped as a kid. This morning they said special prayers for the former mayor. Rizzo had his troubles here. Church officials say the outspoken student was asked to leave St. Monica's school after 6th grade, but he made up for it. When the church caught fire in 1971, Rizzo helped put it out and wrote a check to help with the restoration. When Monsignor Farrell died in '79, officials say Rizzo ordered him buried on church grounds, against a new city ordinance, but in keeping with the Monsignor's last wish. Only one thing bothers people here.
I don't understand how, after the man departs from this earth, everybody gets on the bandwagon and praises him. Why didn't they do that before? Maybe it'd have been mayor last time.
Unlike his political enemies, they've always sung Frank Rizzo's praises here. In South Philadelphia, David Murphy, Channel 6 Action News.
In life or death, one thing is very clear. Frank Rizzo was one of the most controversial political figures this city, or this country for that matter, has known in a very long time. One of the most controversial episodes of his tenure in office came in the late 1970s. Then Mayor Frank Rizzo stood with the residents of South Philadelphia in a bitter battle with racial overtones. The year was 1978, and Rizzo led the fight against the federal government's plan to put low-income housing at Whitman Park.
I'm the mayor of Philadelphia. There'll never be anything go into your neighborhood that you do not want.
We're going to take this land! We're going to take this land!
Black activists joined in the battle, leading marches and rallies to get the federal housing built at Whitman Park. Rizzo vowed to protect the people who already lived in the neighborhoods, most of them from white ethnic groups.
I've read the Constitution of this great country. I've read the Bill of Rights. Nowhere does it say in the Bill of Rights that any group of people should be better off than we are. I want everybody to be treated equal.
Well, the mayor and the city lost their court fights, and in 1982, with Bill Green as mayor, residents moved into Whitman Park with little fanfare. Today, Whitman Park is a neighborhood where black and white residents live in harmony. 3 years ago, senior correspondent Mark Howard talked to Rizzo, who defended his stance in fighting Whitman Park.
I'm glad that it's working. I want it to work. I want people to live in peace and harmony. No, but that would not change my position, Mark. I think the average man and woman, their most precious possession is their home. And I just don't think that government, state, federal, local, should jam anything down a homeowner's throat.
Just prior to his death yesterday, Rizzo met with two members of the black community. The meeting took place at the Faith Chapel Church of God and Christ in Germantown. We went back there today and talked to two of the black leaders present at the meeting yesterday. Both Reverend Eugene Graves and Jesse Woods said that Rizzo spent the meeting describing how he wanted to bring the black and white communities together. Reverend Graves said that Rizzo discussed the possibility of appointing a black police commissioner and a black city managing director. But Reverend Graves also is the first person who may have noticed some ominous signs about Frank Rizzo's health.
Bring about some changes in our city. The thing that did impress me, though, I walked him downstairs, and he grabbed my hand, and he held my hand, and I felt it trembling. And then I noticed that as he was going out the door, he stumbled, and Frank Rizzo don't stumble.
Jesse Woods claims that Rizzo would have received 35 to 40% of the black vote in November. If he had, and clearly that's a big if, he probably would have been the next mayor. The political speculation about a replacement for Rizzo has already begun, and the Republican Party doesn't have a great deal of time to pick up the pieces and move on. But for the moment, the party is showing its respect.
I don't intend to really think about it nor discuss it until after the funeral.
Republican Party honchos like Donald Jameson won't publicly talk about a Rizzo replacement until after his funeral.
It will be done by the Republican City Committee, and we will get to that promptly.
Many believe they'll go with their original favorite, Ron Castile. The former DA has the highest name recognition, but is widely considered damaged political goods after his lackluster performance in the primary against Frank Rizzo and Sam Katz. The Rizzo camp today started boosting Katz as a Rizzo replacement. They've sent word to party bosses that Castile is unacceptable, and they're threatening to use whatever clout they have left to beat him this November if Castile's placed in Rizzo's spot on the GOP ticket.
Bill Meehan's going to make that choice, and then hopefully he'll hear some people all across the spectrum.
Katz is a long shot since party regulars blame him for Castile's loss to Rizzo in the primary.
Obviously, the situation politically has changed. How it will be for me personally, I can't say. I'm not prepared to say today.
You think Meehan can accept you?
I really haven't given it any thought.
Party boss Billy Meehan told me by telephone today, quote, "I'll listen to everybody, including the Rizzoites." He said he hopes to have a new nominee by August 22nd. Democratic nominee Ed Rendell remains out of public view, having canceled all campaign appearances until after the Rizzo funeral. Privately, his supporters feel secure. There's no one the GOP or anyone else can put up now with a chance of beating him this fall. Vernon Odom, Channel 6 Action News, Center City.
Still to come on Action News tonight, a verdict is in the murder trial of a South Jersey teenager. In Harrisburg, they are calling it a breakthrough on the budget. And in sports, the Phillies send the Dodgers packing. Scott Palmer has matinee highlights. Dave Roberts, the 5-day from AccuWeather. One Action News continues tonight.
Okay, action!
We wanted a big, comfortable family car.
Oh, and we got the all-new Olds 88 Royale.
When Olds Connection dealers decided to give an $1,100 video camera with every 88 sold, we didn't know the Ross family would use it to make their own commercial.
Anti-lock brakes, airbag, traction control, that's security.
Whoa, big trunk, dude! Buy the totally redesigned 1992 Olds 88 before August 15th, and you'll get a camcorder to make your own commercial. It could end up on TV.
There is a new gasoline that is clearly advanced. A new gasoline that will give you the highest level of engine cleaning for high performance. A new gasoline formulated for lower pollution and cleaner air. Who has this new gasoline? You know who. New Phase 4 gasoline from Exxon for high performance and cleaner air.
There's a way to call that's so smart, it works on almost any phone. So simple, you need no complicated codes. So easy.
Service.
When I'm calling you, I use my IQ.
Uses her IQ. The Bell Atlantic IQ card. So smart, so simple, so use it.
When I'm calling you.
What's in Chi-Chi's new Sonoran sampler? Burro. A grande burro and
Chimichanga, chimichanga.
a chimichanga. Plus
ice cream.
So for just $6.99, you get our
Sonoran sampler.
For a song.
Chi-Chi's a celebration of food.
Tonight on Channel 6, starting at 7, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, Wonder Years, Growing Pains, Doogie Howser, Man and the Family, Equal Justice, Action News, and Nightline.
A 5-alarm fire has been brought under control tonight in North Philadelphia. The blaze broke out shortly before 4 in an abandoned factory near the corner of North American and Cumberland. Smoke and flames billowed from the 6-story building and could be seen from miles away. The fire was declared under control shortly before 5 o'clock. Fortunately, there were no reports of injuries or evacuations, but several nearby streets had to be closed down. A Salem County jury has convicted 18-year-old Kenneth Hausneck of fatally stabbing his neighbor. Action News reporter Lucy Yang was in the courtroom today when the verdict came down.
How did the members of the jury find to question number 1, murder?
Guilty.
With that, the courtroom broke out in applause and tears this afternoon as the jury found Ken Hausneck guilty on all 6 counts, most notably guilty of killing 12-year-old Kim Anderson 3 years ago. Throughout the verdict, the 18-year-old defendant sat stoically as he has throughout this lengthy trial, his face betraying no emotions. However, for the first time, his father spoke to the press today, still defending his son.
He's been in a cage back there.
On this day, we thank God for giving us Frank Rizzo his earthly life in Philadelphia. We thank God for giving Frank Rizzo eternal life in heaven.
Friday, July 19th, 1991, an unforgettable day in the Delaware Valley.
Record crowds turn out to pay tribute to a Philadelphia legend.
It begins with a funeral mass at the Cathedral of Saints Peter and Paul in Center City.
Then, thousands say goodbye as the funeral procession makes its way up Broad Street to Holy Sepulchre Cemetery in Cheltenham, where Frank Rizzo is laid to rest.
And now a Channel 10 News special. Frank Rizzo, The End of an Era. Here are Larry Kane and Diane Allen.
Good evening, I'm Diane Allen.
And I'm Larry Kane. Today, Frank Rizzo, the former mayor of Philadelphia and one of the most important public figures in the history of the city, made news for the last time, and Channel 10 was there.
Our Channel 10 cameras captured the events of the day with live team coverage of the funeral of Frank Rizzo.
Tonight, for those of you who did not witness today's events, or for those of you who just want to relive this extraordinary day in our history, Channel 10 has put together a final tribute to Frank Rizzo. Special moments from today's historic happenings.
So sit back and look back with us. Experience what will always be an unforgettable day for Philadelphia.
Let's start with Jane Robelo, who joins us from outside the Cathedral of Saints Peter and Paul on the Parkway. Jane, good morning.
Good morning, Larry and Diane. As you can see, the close friends have just finished moving into the church. They started filing into the church about 9:20 this morning. Many of the people in the public are waiting to go in. They've been standing here, many of them, since 8 o'clock this morning. But there's a serenity, a calmness. It's a warm day, but there's a gentle breeze that seems to be keeping everyone comfortable. We understand that Mrs. Rizzo and the Rizzo immediate family came to the church shortly before 9 o'clock, but the casket was still open. They had one more opportunity for the private viewing of the body, and then the casket was closed. The close friends and family members have assembled now. The dignitaries have gone in. They all have special places in the church. So we understand the family will sit to the right of the church along with some police officers, and on the left the dignitaries and others, close friends, will sit. And after that the public will be allowed to fill in the rest of the seats. The church seats some 1,700 people, but extra chairs have been brought in and TV monitors are in place so that everyone in the cathedral will have a good opportunity to see. The mood is, of course, somber. A lot of people naturally wearing sunglasses when they were out in the sun, but I noticed that they didn't take them off when they moved into the shade. Perhaps that's to hide the tears. I think for a lot of people, it's finally beginning to sink in that Frank Rizzo has passed away.
You know, it's a private grief here with such a public outpouring of grief, and I'm sure they're going to need a few moments after this is all over to sit down and digest it all, to really digest it all. Right now, inside the cathedral is Channel 10's Bill Baldini, who's waiting for the massive Christian burial to get underway. Bill?
Well, as you can see, Larry, right behind me, people from all over are paying homage to Frank Rizzo. Governor Casey just spoke to the family, Mayor Good, former Mayor Green, Senator Arlen Specter. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. The family is right at front, Mrs. Rizzo, Joanna, Frank Rizzo's pride and joy, his grandson, Joseph, and his son-in-law. His brother Joe is in the back, but his son Franny is all over the church making sure all the details are being taken care of. Earlier this morning, the family had a private viewing, the last viewing of Frank Rizzo before they closed the casket. They invited me in. It was a very sad moment. I think at that moment was the first time the reality that Frank Rizzo was really dead hit the family. It was a very sad, very private moment. But I think they're weathering the storm rather well. We also found out that the procession here at the cathedral will begin 5 minutes to 10 down the middle aisle. They should start at 10 o'clock. Cardinal Bevilacqua, of course, will celebrate the Mass with several other priests. And it's interesting, the homily will be delivered by Father Richard Skelly. He's a close personal friend, and he taught Franny Rizzo in high school. Frank Rizzo befriended everyone. Anyone who came in contact with his family seemingly became a close personal friend. The dignitaries here range from doctors, lawyers, politicians, but in Frank Rizzo's mind, and I think the family's mind, the real dignitaries here are the policemen. The policemen have a very prominent position in this church. In these front aisles, all these people here are chauffeurs, former policemen, firemen, working people. The dignitaries that normally would take the front rows are sitting in the back, the lawyers, the doctors, the Indian chiefs. That's Frank Rizzo. If he ever had a legacy, the legacy would be he was definitely a man of the people. Bill Baldini reporting live from inside the cathedral. Larry?
When we return tonight, special moments from today's funeral mass.
And we'll have more reaction to the passing of Frank Rizzo.
We'll be right back.
Special continues.
He guides me along the right path. He is true to his name. If I should walk in the valley of darkness, no evil would I fear.
Mrs. Rizzo sitting in the front pew with her son. In a moment, there will be a reading by Joe Rizzo, Frank Rizzo's younger brother, former Philadelphia Fire Commissioner, devastated by the loss. Very, very close, the two brothers. Very close.
A reading from the first letter of Paul to the Thessalonians. We shall stay with the Lord forever. We would have you be clear about those who sleep in death, brothers. Otherwise you might yield to grief, like those who have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose, God will bring forth with him from the dead those also who have fallen asleep believing in him. We say to you, as if the Lord himself had said it, that we who live, who survive until his coming will in no way have an advantage over those who have fallen asleep. No, the Lord himself will come down from heaven at the word of command, at the sound of the archangel's voice and God's trumpet. And those who have died in Christ will rise first. Then we, the living, the survivors, will be caught up with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Thenceforth, we shall be with the Lord unceasingly. Console one another with this message. This is the word of the Lord.
Right now, let's go to Jane Robelo, who's standing by outside the cathedral with a look at what's happening there. Jane?
Larry and Diane, we have been told by city officials that inside the cathedral there are 3,000 people. That's with the extra seating. Outside the cathedral, you can see that people line the streets. They're mostly trying to stay in the shaded areas. Hundreds of people all along and right here immediately in front of the basilica. And what's so interesting about that is that people cannot hear or see anything that's going on inside, yet they stay, they remain. Their presence is very important to this man, Frank Rizzo.
On behalf of all of us gathered here this morning and all those watching, I extend to you, Carmela, to you, Frank Jr., Joanna, and your son, Joey, your husband, Joe, to brother Joe, and all the Rizzo family, our sincere sympathy this time of separation and loss. And we assure you of our prayers for Frank and for you. Some personal thoughts about this giant of a man. Thoughts gleaned from over 30 years of a deep and abiding friendship. His politics I will leave to others. My thoughts are about the man, the person that is Frank Rizzo. Literally thousands of people could relate incidents and stories about how in some way they were helped and touched and helped by this man who cared so very much for people. Truly, his heart was as big as he was. Francis Lazaro Rizzo, in his 70 years, has experienced the thrill of victory. Yes, also the agony of defeat. But in his dying and rising with Christ, he has won his final victory. May he rest in eternal peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
This is my body, which will be given up for you.
This is another of the ancient parts of the liturgy, the sign of peace, or kiss of peace, where people greet each other as they prepare for communion.
You can see Mrs. Rizzo, Carmela Rizzo there, blowing kisses to friends and family, reaching and touching her loved ones around her.
Communion being offered from cardinal to cardinal. Special moment.
This is really the completion of the rite. We've offered our gifts that have been blessed and given back, and now people come to partake of the bread and wine.
Mrs. Rizzo, son Fran, daughter Joanna, grandson and son-in-law Joe Mastronardo.
Frank Rizzo lives in heaven, but he also lives in our memory. And each of us has his or her memory of him. In the short time that I came to know him, I have recognized the legacy he bequeathed, a legacy of love of his God, of his church, of his family, of Philadelphia, and of every individual in the community. Frank Rizzo is in peace now, and was in peace here on earth. I saw him as a man who had no battle, no conflict between his faith and his life. What he believed, he lived. He loved his God, and therefore he could love his neighbor. On behalf of all the bishops and priests and all of the faithful of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and from me personally, I extend my deepest sympathies to Carmela and his wife, to his son Frank Jr., to his daughter Joanna, to all his relatives and friends, and to all in Philadelphia, and to all whom he touched and with whom he always kept in touch. On this day, we thank God for giving us Frank Rizzo, his earthly life in Philadelphia. We thank God for giving Frank Rizzo eternal life in heaven.
We'll be right back with more special moments from today's final farewell to the former mayor of Philadelphia.
Stay with us.
Frank Rizzo, The End of an Era. A Channel 10 News special will continue.
Continues.
I think most people feel this as they would feel a death in their own families. Amazing Grace.
Senator Spector, your impression on this massive gathering outside the cathedral, the service inside. So many have turned out to say goodbye to an old friend.
Well, it's a sign of a great respect that the people of Philadelphia have for former Mayor Rizzo. He gave his life for the city as a fighter. At a time when there's so many problems for our city and state and country, we really need every ounce of muscle we have, and it's a great loss to Philadelphia.
Okay, Senator Spector and General Spector, thank you so much for taking time to share some thoughts with us as you come from the service. Thank you very much. Larry and Diane, as we said, here's Ron Castile. We had a chance to speak with you earlier as you were going in, and now as you come away from the service, just your impressions on what happened inside.
Well, it was a beautiful service, and it really takes something like that for you to realize that this truly is the end of a legend. Frank Rizzo is probably the most well-known Philadelphian of our times, and perhaps for the last 40 years. So it's the passing of a legend.
You know, a lot of people have said a lot of things about the Frank Rizzo that they had political differences with, of course, yourself included in that. But wouldn't you agree that even in a time like this, when everyone has come together, that they all recognize the man and not the politics at this time?
Yeah, you know, whatever you think about Frank Rizzo and whatever he did, you know that for 40 years he was there fighting, and he was on the center stage most of the time, so people are respecting him for his service, and truly it is the passing of a legend.
Okay, right now, following the motorcade, which is just passed by the Broad and Erie Avenue, is Channel 10's Terry Ruggles, who's in Jet Chopper 10 live. Terry?
Well, there, what's ironic about passing Broad and Erie, that's where that famous picture of young Frank Rizzo, the police officer, was taken. by Sam Sassouris about 46 years ago. That's the one that everyone has been showing in all these eulogies for Frank Rizzo back when he was a cop in the 39th District. Now, we've just crossed the Roosevelt Boulevard extension. As you see, we are staying with the family, staying with the hearse and the police motorcade as we move up Broad Street. Normally, if you and I were driving this, Larry, it would take us about 30 minutes. This could take anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half to get this entire procession, the 9 miles from City Hall and the Basilica up to Cheltenham Avenue. There are people stopping all along the way. One thing that touched me as we were flying overhead, beside police stopping traffic, fire companies are coming out and stopping traffic. And below me at one particular intersection, 4 firemen were standing at attention and saluted next to their fire engines as Frank Rizzo's hearse went by. So we're moving north on Broad Street, I would say about 20 miles an hour, up towards Luann's location, which is, of course, right across from Girls High School. And we still have another mile of city to go before we make that left-hand turn on Cheltenham Avenue for the interment in the cemetery.
Everyone is standing here in the heat, waving newspapers. They've got their ice water, everything. It's very hot, but everyone wants to see this. Everyone feeling that this is truly a historic event and wanting to say goodbye to Frank Rizzo. You see the procession heading our way now.
Luann, this is probably the most amazing picture of the day when you look at the screen and you realize that in the area of Einstein Hospital, you look to the right of your screen, right to the right, to the bare edge, you see the motorcade heading your way, and you see the lights all the way down Broad Street. And this is one of the spots on Broad Street in Philadelphia, when you're at Broad and Alderney and you pass Girls High and Central High School, that you can see City Hall. You can see the outline of City Hall, and if you look, if the camera can move over toward the center somewhat, you can see just how far that motorcade goes, probably to near City Hall. It's just an amazing picture.
You can see the light shimmering, too, because of the intense heat. And it really is ironic that Frank Rizzo's being buried on a day of such intense heat because he hated the heat so much.
The picture, the beginning of the motorcade arriving in the Holy Sepulchre area, the cemetery on Cheltenham Avenue, just beyond the city line, bordering the city of Philadelphia, the first motorcycle officers arriving on the scene, and Harvey Clark is standing by there live, and it seems to me that the crowd is a little deeper than it was even before, Harvey.
You better bet you, Larry, and one of the things you just said is that Frank Rizzo is going to be one step across the street from the city that he loves so much, Philadelphia, here in Cheltenham Township. The beginning of the motorcade coming into Holy Sepulchre Cemetery now, folks preparing themselves for the arrival of Frank Rizzo. What we're being told is that inside there are only going to be about 200 or so very close family and friends allowed at graveside. I'm not sure where that's going to leave the other 200 or so cars in this motorcade, but we're told that at graveside there will be a very brief 10 or 15-minute ceremony, of course a 12-gun salute to Frank Rizzo, and then the last farewell. But it's supposed to be a short service, and we're told that only about 200 very special friends and family members will be allowed at graveside. Flower car only about 20 yards from the main gate now. Behind there, the family in the hearse right behind. The highway patrol surrounding Frank's hearse at the main gate. State police, city police saluting Frank Rizzo on his last drive, his last ride. One man behind me saying, "God bless you, Frank." A lot of that going on in the crowd now.
I wonder if everybody's feeling chills go up their spine the way I am as we watch this picture.
Absolutely, and in the family car that just went by, Franny Rafferty, Frank Jr., in the window, all the way, waving at people who have come out and saying thank you, thank you, thank you.
In a moment, some final thoughts tonight on all that's happened here in Philadelphia today.
Stay with us.
Frank Rizzo, The End of an Era. A Channel 10 News special will continue. A Channel 10 News special continues.
Some final thoughts now. Frank Rizzo adored this city. Yes, he was the tough cop, the scrappy street fighter, the brash leader, and for many, the relentless champion.
but it was all motivated by a passionate love of Philadelphia, and the residents returned that affection. If we didn't know the depth of their feelings for him before, it became apparent today as they gathered by the thousands on the streets of Philadelphia. In hushed reverence, they came out for one more time with Frank Rizzo. Oh, they'd come out before to congratulate him, to ask for help, to just watch and wonder as he wove his own special brand of politics. But this time the crowds weren't there to cheer him on, but to send him on, to say goodbye. Frank Rizzo lit up this city for decades. He was blustery and he was charming, polite and profane. Though the light has been dimmed now, he's a man we'll never forget.
I also have some final thoughts tonight. You know, Frank Rizzo was special for many reasons, but primarily because he was rare. He wasn't always right, but he had the courage to say what he believed, publicly. There are few politicians in our time who say in public what they really think. That's what set him apart. That's what brought him victory and at times problems. He was obsessed with the city of Philadelphia, in love with it and its people, and perhaps the final legacy of Frank Rizzo is that in death, on this really extraordinary day, he was able to bring people together. And just a final personal note, he was an absolute pleasure to know and to cover. And from Channel 10 News, that is the Frank Rizzo story. I'm Larry Kane.
I'm Diane Allen. Thanks for being with us.
And he did a lot of small things that he never wanted publicized. A lot of small things for people in need, a lot of visits to terminally ill patients, to people he really cared about, and it's really a pity that people didn't see that side of Frank Rizzo.
Why didn't he want them to?
Very, very private person in a lot of respects, despite the fact that he was a public man.
And as a religious man, he wanted that to be between him and his Lord, I suppose.
Good night.
Yo, Fab Five Freddy with Billy D. Williams. Yeah. Definitely the flyest act in the business. But Billy, what do you do to Max and we love?
Well, Freddie, I usually like to spend a quiet evening